Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Bold and beautiful casting news. Is Jack Marone returning? Taylor and Nick Sunset to rejoin? Bold and the beautiful fans, we have got big casting news as actor Harrison Cohn joins the CBS soap cast. Based on some hints about who he will play, it has me wondering if he might be Jack Marone, all grown up and back on the scene. We're going to talk about why we think Bold may be bringing back Taylor Hayes, Rebecca Budig, and Nick Marone's Jack Wagner, son after so many years of his absence. We heard more than a week ago in the fall preview that official Bold and the beautiful spoilers said there are a couple of younger characters tied to our major families that are going to be coming in. I was wondering who it might be since most of our younger characters that already exist are on screen currently. Like Kelly Spencer, Sophia Perez-McKinley, Beth Spencer, Jordan Lynn Ariza, and Hayes Forrester Finnegan, Brian Garlick. We haven't seen Douglas Forrester, Henry Joseph Samiri in a while. If you think about a younger character that might be tied to multiple families, that gives us another hint. We got the news this week. They've hired this very hot younger actor, a young man in his 20s, Harrison Cohn. The character he is going to play is described as an aspiring fashion designer who makes his first on-screen appearance at Forrester Creations on Tuesday, September 16th. This means this character is Forrester and Slash or Logan adjacent to be showing up there. That's part of what has me wondering if he is going to be Jack, who is the son of Taylor and Nick, but he's also the son of Brooke Logan, Catherine Kelly Lang, and Nick. If you don't remember the twisted tale of Jack and how he came to be the child of Nick, Taylor, and Brooke, here's a refresh. It's been so many years ago. The backstory started late 2006, early 2007. Here's a quick rundown of Jack's origin story and why I think this might be who we're getting. Back then, Taylor first came into Nick's life as his psychiatrist. Things got unprofessional between them after Taylor split from Ridge Forrester, Thorsten Kaye, which was down to a Brooke thing, of course. Taylor and Nick Marone then began dating and fell in love hard and fast. They got married, I think, early 2007. Taylor and Nick Marone wanted to have a baby, but Taylor was struggling with infertility, so they needed an egg donor. It was Bridget Forrester, Ashley Jones, another ex-wife of Nick's, who was their fertility doctor. Bridget made a little whoopsie, actually a really big whoopsie, which she used a donor egg to make this embryo for Nick and Taylor to have implanted. The big whoopsie was that Bridget used her mother Brooke's egg by accident. Taylor carried the baby and gave birth to Jack, and he happened to be a preemie. The truth about the baby being Brooke's biological son came out because Jack had an immune issue and needed a bone marrow transplant. Taylor went looking for the egg donor to ask them to donate marrow to save baby Jack. That's when Bridget had to look deeper and then had to explain, whoops, there was a mistake in the lab. And Brooke's egg was used. Of course, Taylor was absolutely beside herself because she and Brooke were longtime enemies and rivals. But when she found out about Jack, Brooke donated her bone marrow. Taylor then had a really hard time bonding with Jack. There were a lot of things to it. He was a preemie. And then finding out Brooke was his biological mother. All of that led to Taylor suffering postpartum depression. And then she started drinking. She and Nick Marone split up, and of course, Brooke was part of that mess as well. After a custody fight, I think Nick and Taylor had shared custody of little Jack. Because Taylor continued to struggle with bonding with him, she asked Brooke to help raise baby Jack. Eventually, Nick left LA, took his son Jack, and they left Bold and the Beautiful, I think, in 2011. At that point, Nick Marone's son was around 4 years old, and he hasn't really been seen by viewers since then. Then out of nowhere, we get this name drop of this kid we've not seen in 14 years. When Nick first came back to Bold and the Beautiful in June for his short return arc, he did mention his son. Brooke and Nick Marone were discussing Jack. And when they brought up his son, Nick said Jack followed in his mom's footsteps and went into fashion instead of shipping. At the time, I wasn't clear if Nick Marone was referring to his own mom, Jackie Marone, who was a designer, or if she was referring to Brooke, who is not a designer, although she is in fashion. Brooke said that Jack seems happy every time she video chats with him. When Rich joined the conversation, Brooke said their son Jack is doing very well at Forrester International in Paris, with Jack name dropped out of nowhere and specifically mentioned as working at Forrester overseas. And then we get this spoiler about this new actor Harrison Cohn playing an aspiring fashion designer. And the spoiler about younger legacy family members. We might just have a Jack Marone recast. This would make him kind of a Logan, kind of a Marone, and definitely Forrester adjacent, and then tied to Taylor as well. There was talk that Jack Wagner would be coming back to B&B for another arc at some point soon to play Nick Marone again around his filming for When Calls the Heart. It would make more sense since Brooke has now married Ridge Forrester again, that Nick might come back because his son Jack could be living in LA and working at Forrester Creations. Another false spoiler about Taylor had me wondering if it was about Jack and not what I originally thought. That spoiler said that Ridge Forrester and Taylor's relationship is tested, which it has been, and it has failed. The rest of the spoilers said it may send Taylor off into new directions with perhaps someone else that hopefully the fans will embrace. With Taylor saying she is going to stay in LA, we know she's obviously going to need a love interest. When I first saw this spoiler, I assumed it was Taylor going in a new direction into the arms of a new man who would help heal her broken heart. But now that there's the chance Jack may be recast and returning, I could read it as Taylor being reunited with the child she carried and gave birth to, and that they're hoping the fans would embrace this recast Jack and him being back in Taylor's life. In the past, because of the egg issue and postpartum and other problems, Taylor never had a real functional relationship with her son Jack. So maybe Taylor is going to get a chance to get to know him. Obviously, he has remained in Brooke's life. And if Nick comes back, there's potential for him and Taylor to interact, maybe spark. Also, Harrison Cohn's character is going to be romantically involved with Remy Price, Christian Weisman. That seems like a drastic pivot that Brad Bell is doing for Remy, who is totally obsessed with Electra Forrester, Linnea Grace, and doing naked Photoshop photos of her. Now we've got Remy suddenly with another guy, so definitely a pivot. Before Harrison Cohn's character arrives, we'll already have Remy back on the scene since Luna Nozowa, Lisa Yamada, takes off when Will Spencer, Crew Morrow, has her cornered in the apartment. And Lunat is going to show up at Remy's place, which really startles him because he didn't know she survived. That's based on some new spoilers I've seen for like Friday and Monday. Remy is not happy to see Luna. With the recent and very specific Jack name drop, I lean towards thinking maybe that's who Harrison Cohn is going to play. But on the other hand, maybe this new actor is going to be playing at SORAS, soap opera rapid aging syndrome. Douglas Forrester, Henry Joseph Samiri. That also crossed my mind because when Thomas Forrester, Matthew Atkinson, came back to LA, he said Douglas, Henry Joseph Samiri, was always off hanging out with his friends and was saying, "You know that age," which makes Thomas' son sound much older than when we last saw him. Douglas should be going on playdates at this point, not being ditched by his dad and left behind in Paris. If Thomas was going to come and go, maybe Douglas would stay over there. But I don't think Thomas would leave Douglas in France alone if he was still a preteen. So maybe Brad Bell has decided to age up Douglas to be a teenager or in his early 20s. If that were the case, I could see Thomas leaving his son in Paris, only to follow him later and meet him in Leh. I do think Douglas being aged up is a long shot. And I feel like there's a better chance that Harrison Cohn might be Jack, but that remains to be seen.